America has just experienced another horrific tragedy. We've just had another school shooting at a community college. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce the name of it, up in Oregon, but I've seen figures as high as 13 people dead, figures as low as 9 people dead. The news agencies will be able to resolve exactly how horrific the amount of blood was shed, all of that. But you know, we struggle with that question of why these things happen. And in the case of this school shooting, at least, we seem to have a very clear-cut reason as to why this event happened. And the reason why this school shooting happened is uncomfortable for a lot of people, and yet it's a reason that does deserve us taking a look at. Right when he heard about the school shooting, President Obama took to the airwaves and said, we have to politicize this issue. And he issued a call for gun control. Well, it's not a political issue that led to the school shooting. Early reports from the media came out saying that the shooter went around asking people, what religion are you? But that's not really true. What he was really asking was people, are you a Christian? It started like this. He took his gun, killed his professor, shooting his professor in the head. And then he asked the students, are you a Christian? Are you a Christian? And if they said yes, he shot them in the head and killed them. If they said no, or if they didn't respond, he would shoot them in the leg. This isn't an issue that could have been stopped with gun control. As we see throughout history, people were targeting Christians for murder, and people were targeting Christians for slaughter with knives, with ropes, by burning them, by feeding them to animals. I never really thought that I would live to see the day when Christians were killed for their faith in America. And I'm reminded of how the vast majority of Christians in the New Testament that we have recorded who lost their lives for the faith lost their lives because of the illegal actions of an illegal mob. A few of the people martyred in the New Testament, as it's recorded for us in history, were killed by the local and federal governments of the time, by the Roman authorities and by the local Jewish authorities. There were some public executions for the martyrs in the early church. However, the majority of the people who were killed, men like Stephen, the first Christian martyr, were killed illegally by mobs who, in their sheer rage, just hated Christians so much that they killed them. And this is something that we're now seeing in America, where the level of hatred against Christians, where the level of anger against Christians is such that people are going around, at least in the state, at least in the state of Oregon, where you have this community college, you had somewhere between 9 and 13 people who were killed for the faith. Killed because they said, yes, I believe in Jesus. What amazes me about that story is that after the first person to meet his fate, the others knew that when they said, yes, I believe in Jesus, they knew they were about to die. And it makes me wonder if I was in this situation, if I would have been able to say, yes, I believe in Jesus. It's my conviction that I would have been able to say, I believe in Jesus, although I believe that I would have responded with a great deal of fear. I mean, nobody really wants to experience pain. Nobody really wants to experience the agony of death. And yet, we must develop the conviction that following after Jesus is more important than anything else. And that includes life itself. Following after Jesus is more important than life itself. And that was a decision that yesterday a lot of people had to make. And when they were asked if they were a Christian or not, there wasn't going to be any last minute, yeah, I changed my mind. Yeah, I gave up that whole Christianity thing about 5 seconds ago. We need to follow after Jesus. And no matter what the cost, and no matter what the consequence, we need to follow after Jesus. The shooting that happened in Oregon yesterday was not a senseless tragedy. There was a deliberate wickedness behind this tragedy. There was a deliberate hatred of Christians, to the point where the killer, where the murderer said that he was going to take the life of people who put their faith in Jesus. In that sense, there was nothing senseless about the tragedy, about the wicked event that happened in Oregon. It wasn't a gun control issue, although, in my humble opinion, if there had been an armed guard on the campus, if people of law-abiding backgrounds were able to carry concealed weaponry, in my opinion, shooters with an evil intent would not be able to go as far as they did if people were allowed to defend themselves. But that's not my point here. I'm not trying to do something political. What I am trying to do is present the people who are watching this video with the knowledge that we have to be prepared as Christians, whether or not we're willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. Jesus made the ultimate sacrifice for us by dying for our sins on the cross, by showing how we could have a new life in his teaching, and proving that he had the power to back up the reality of that new life in the resurrection. The reality that God became a man, that God died for us on the cross, that God showed that he was in Jesus through the resurrection. The reality should be so important to us that no matter what the cost, no matter what the consequence, we should follow after God. Remember the words of Jesus when he said, "Whoever denies me before men, I will deny before my Father in heaven. Whoever is ashamed of me before men, I will be ashamed of before my Father in heaven." Jesus says that it is more important for us to profess our faith in him than it is for us to even preserve our own life. And so when I talk to you today, I ask that you consider, I ask that you reflect on how much your Christian faith is worth to you. And I ask, if you were in that situation, would you be able to, knowing that you were about to die for the faith, like these young adults, be able to say, yes, I'm a Christian. I believe that Jesus died on the cross for me. I believe in the resurrection. Because if we believe these things, we will be saved. We are all going to die. It's just a question of when. It's just a question of how. It's my belief that there's no better way to die than with such a great profession of faith as these students demonstrated. And none of the politicians who want to use this incident to talk about why we should have more access to guns or why we should have less access to guns. None of the politicians should distract you from the real issue out of this tragedy. And the real issue out of this tragedy is about the hatred of the world against people of faith. Specifically, it's about the satanic hatred of the true and living God who revealed himself through Christ and who exercises his satanic and demonic fury of hatred against Christians in the world. And that includes people who are living in the 21st century in America, because we're still in the world. The reality of Christianity still dominates over all of our being, whether we recognize it or not. The reality of the evil forces which are at work is true, whether we recognize it or not. And so it's important that we not lose focus about what the real issues are when we examine what these martyrs did by stepping up for the faith and saying, yes, we believe in Jesus. Don't let any of the talk about gun control distract you from this important reality that Jesus is more important than even our life itself.